it's been a time where we've been able to just go back to some of the basics. And so I want to start today by repeating something that I've said many times, and that is that I don't believe in luck. I believe that my steps are ordered of the Lord, right? I believe that, I wish sometimes I would see more than the next step. He just says the steps of a righteous man are ordered of the Lord, but sometimes I wish he'd just show us a little bit more of the path, instead of which sometimes we just see the next step. But because I can't see the future, sometimes I have to admit I worry. Now, I know you're going to say, well, worry is a waste of time. And I've told you the same thing. And the reality is hindsight shows that most of the time, the things that we worry about simply vanish. The other day, I had some business situation come up, and I remember waking up and thinking about it and thinking, oh my goodness, I've got this, and this is going to be complex, and this is going to be bad, and blah, blah, blah. And the next day, things just changed, and I had absolutely no need to worry. And so that thought leads me back into talking about Philippians 4:6 and the translation in the Message Bible, don't fret or worry. Instead of worrying, pray. I started out by saying today that I don't believe in chance. And last night, I had the opportunity to listen in to a conversation between three friends of mine who were on a kind of like a web seminar, and they were talking, and with hindsight, I thought, what, that was not coincidence. That was something that I'm glad that I had the opportunity to listen into, and I don't think it was chance, because I think it fit in with what I was feeling that I wanted to talk to you about. But the three guys were Robert Stearns. Many of you may have heard of him. He's a Christian leader who has a church and a ministry out of New York somewhere. And then Ari Lamb, who you might not have heard of, but he's a young and incredible Jewish rabbi. He's from a very notable family of Jewish leaders here in the U.S. And then the moderator of this discussion was another friend, a man named Johnny Moore, who has a remarkable ministry, and he's been used of God in many incredible ways, including being a leading member of the President's Council of the Evangelical Leaders. But those three men were sitting there talking, and our conversation centered around the topic of gratitude. And during the conversation, Ari Lamb talked about a Jewish prayer that I've heard of, but I've never really focused on. It's called the Modeh Ani, and it's a prayer that observant Jewish people do every day upon waking, and they say it while they're still in bed. So I don't know what you say while you're still in bed, but sometimes I don't think I say anything. The alarm sounds, or it's time to get up, and I just get up. But the idea that while I'm still in bed, I would go through a prayer before the Lord is an incredible idea. It's something that I'm going to try to do. The Jewish prayer that they pray, this Modeh Ani, in English reads roughly as follows: I give thanks before you, King living and eternal, for you have returned within me my soul with compassion. Abundant is your faithfulness. And I thought, wow, that's a great prayer. I give thanks before you, King living and eternal. That's who we serve. For you have returned within me my soul with compassion. Abundant is your faithfulness. But Ari went on to say that actually that's the English translation. But when you look at the Hebrew words, it's not I give thanks before you. The sentence is a different order. It says, in Hebrew, it says thanks I give before you. The first word is thanks. And Ari said that in the Jewish tradition, that word thanks is where it is in the sentence, because when we wake up each day, the very first word that comes out of our mouth will be thanks. And I thought, man, that's just a wonderful idea. He went on to say that it's said that before you think, you thank. And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. I'm going to adapt that to make it my own. You know, I've been talking about the fact that this week, one of the things we should do as we start our day is to start our day in prayer. But how about starting our day in prayer while we're still in bed? Psalm 5:3. I've read these scriptures all week, but it was just renewed to me after that conversation last night. My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning will I direct my prayer unto thee, and I will look up. Well, I love the idea of saying, I will look up. And as I look up, I'm saying, I give thanks before you, King living and eternal. I'm giving God thanks that I'm even here today. And you know what? I've taught about it, but I want to be people who live an attitude of gratitude. You know, for me, you know me, I always am using that phrase, I'm blessed. I remember one day that I had the opportunity to meet President Bush, and I shook his hand and he said, how are you? And I said, I'm blessed. And he hung on to my hand and he said, wow, he said, I really like that. I'm going to start using that. Well, I've heard some people imply that to say I'm blessed is boastful. Well, I want you to know, for me, it's not a boast. It's an expression of gratitude to God. I just sit there and say, Lord, you have blessed me. You have blessed me with your grace, with your mercy. And so this is just a wonderful thought to me that I want to start the day by expressing gratitude. Start the day by thanking the Lord. I love the idea of starting the day. And before I get up, even, thank you, Lord. Before I think, let the first words be thank you. And you know what? I think there's a blessing in being around people who express gratitude. I don't know about you, but I've known some people who don't express gratitude. They have an attitude of whatever is done is never enough, and they live in an attitude of entitlement. But, you know, being around people like that's draining. I'd far rather be around somebody who is expressing gratitude. And of course, first of all, we express gratitude to him. But then secondly, I think we can express gratitude to each other. There was a syndicated columnist called Carl Rowan. Many of you probably heard about him. But he wrote his autobiography called Breaking Barriers, and in that he told a story about a teacher. Miss Thompson was her name, and she reached into her desk drawer one day, pulled out a piece of paper, and it contained a quote attributed to Chicago architect Daniel Burnham. And the quote that she read was, "Make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood and will probably themselves not be realized. Make big plans. Aim high in hope and work. Remember that our sons and grandsons are going to do greater things that would stagger us." And actually, I know when I've been to Oral Roberts University, they have that sign there that says, "Make no small plans here." But at any rate, Carl Rowan went on to say that 30 years after that was read to him, he gave a speech in which he talked about Francis Thompson, that teacher who had given him that thought. It ignited in him a belief that he could do something great. Well, a newspaper picked up that story of his speech, and then someone saw the story and clipped out that news story and sent it to this lady, sent it to the teacher who was still alive. And she wrote to Carl and she says, "You have no idea what that newspaper story meant to me. For years, I'd endured my brother's arguments that I'd wasted my life. I should have married and had a family. But when I read that you gave me credit for helping to launch your marvelous career, I put the clipping in front of my brother, and after he'd read it, I said to him, 'You see, I didn't really waste my life, did I?'" And that just made me realize that, all too often we go through life and we just accept what others do. And we accept far too often just what the Lord does. So how about we start our day? And yeah, we're going to start it in prayer, and I'm going to continue to talk about the elements of that prayer. But I just thought yesterday, there's no way that was coincidence, that as I've been talking and thinking about this, that I listen in on that conversation. So let's make a commitment to be people who display gratitude. And if you, like me, are going to try to do that before you even get out of bed, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If that rings a bell with you, drop me a note, write a note somewhere, and let me know. But in the meantime, I just want to encourage you. Give God thanks. Express appreciation to people. When somebody does something for you, try and go overboard and thank them, because you never know. They may just be like that Mrs. Thompson or Miss Thompson, who went for years thinking that she'd wasted her life, but then a simple story of thanks got back to her, and it enabled her to put her life in perspective. So that's my thought for the day. I pray that it blesses you as much as it blessed me. And remember, you're not watching this by chance, because your steps are ordered of the Lord. I love you all. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.